Okay, let's have a look at the management tools now. So we'll start first up by looking at how Exchange is installed. Now, Exchange has 5 different roles, and each one of those roles has a different set of functions, so we're actually going to cover that later on in the presentation. But for now, I just wanted to quickly show you the installation steps. So when we do the installation, we can choose between a typical install, and the typical install is going to install what's called the hub transport, the client access role, the mailbox role, and the management console. Those are basically the main components for a standard install, if you like. If you don't want to do that, you can select the custom installation, and when you do so, you'll be presented with this screen here. And in the custom installation, you can choose any one of the roles. So again, I'll explain what this is later on in terms of the roles. But you can see here that we've actually got a unified messaging role as well. We've got an edge transport for things like anti-spam, antivirus, content filtering. Unified messaging, by the way, is what links through to your fax and through to your voicemail. Then we've got options here for active and passive clustering. Alright, so this is the continuous cluster application that we talked about at the very start of the presentation. And so once we've chosen our roles, then we go through to the next phase, which it basically says done, 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 done. So the actual installation is very straightforward. It's an intuitive wizard. It will do all of the preliminary checks prior to the installation prior to this actual wizard starting. It will do the pre-install checks. Okay, make sure that you've got all the prerequisites. So it is a easy way of installing it. The only reason I'm hesitating here is because you really do need to understand this. Okay, so you have to understand the Exchange server roles and how they work, how they can be bundled, what can run with what, and so on. Right. So there are a number of rules that need to be followed. So as much as I'd like to say it's just a next finish kind of install, it is really for a test environment. And if you're just doing a typical installation, but beyond that, obviously, like anything else, you do need to do a little bit of reading and figure out how all of these roles work, and do a proper design, obviously. Okay, once you've got the server installed, the typical thing you're going to do is do a mailbox migration. Now, alright, let me just handle one question that I'm sure will be asked, and that is, if I've got Exchange 2003, can I simply upgrade through to Exchange 2007? Right? No, cannot do that. Right? Regardless of the circumstances. So even if, for example, you had Windows 2003 running on 64 bits and so forth, there's basically no upgrade path from any prior version of Exchange through to 2007. Okay, but that being said, it's straightforward to do. Right? So in the sense that you've got your network and you've got your Exchange 2003 system. Well, all we're going to do is we're going to be dropping in an Exchange 2007 system pretty much next to it, and we're then going to be say it again, migrating the mailboxes from the old system through to the new. And doing so is really quite simple. So to do that, you can see here that this is the management console for Exchange 2003. So we basically go in and we say, alright, find me the server that equals that, and this guy here is our old Exchange 2003 system, for example. And if I don't want to migrate all of the users and I want to do it in small chunks, I can say, okay, well, if their alias starts with C, and of course this criteria can be absolutely anything, okay, by department, whatever you like. Then what this does is that it gives us a set of results, these guys here, and then I simply highlight all of them, shift click kind of thing, and then right click and say move mailbox. Once I say move mailbox, it's going to fire up this wizard. Okay. Now the very first question that it's going to ask us is basically the destination Exchange system, which obviously is going to be our Exchange 2007 box. So here we select our 2007 server, the storage group, and the actual MAILBOX database where it's going to be, where these users are going to be moved into. Okay, next number of steps, and it's just these three. So what happens next is that it says, alright, if I find some corrupt messages, what do you want me to do? Should I basically skip the mailbox entirely, or should I skip a specific amount, right, a specific amount of corrupt messages and simply ignore them, even though it's going to log everything? Okay, so normally, you know, we tend to stick 50 in here and say this option rather than that one there. And then, because, you know, a couple of corrupt messages are fine, but obviously if you're getting more than 50, you've got serious problems on that particular mailbox. Okay, then this part here is really nice. It enables us to schedule the move. Now this is not new to 2007. Exchange 2003 actually has this ability as well. But it enables us to basically say, alright, move the mailboxes immediately, or move it at a specific time. So this is great because I can say, alright, you know, department for, I don't know, say marketing. I select all my users like I did in the prior screen, and then I say, alright, let's move them, you know, tonight at 8 PM, and all I've got to do is basically come in early tomorrow morning and check the logs, alright, and basically see if any of the mailbox migrations failed. If anything did fail, all that happens is that the mailbox is now still on the old server, right? So it's a non-destructive process. So that's scheduling. And then the very last step is just a status report of success and failure. And that's it for mailbox migration. Alright, a look at the new graphical user interface for 2007. Now first up, this quote here, basically just saying that up to 70% of IT pros' time go on managing existing systems. Alright, which makes sense. So in doing so, anything that vendors can do to simplify the tools, to make them more powerful, to make the scripts more within reach of most humans, which we'll actually have a look at later on, and to make, you know, graphical user interfaces effective, if you like, for actually doing real-world tasks, is very, very important. So you can see here that the graphical user interface has been completely changed. If you look at this section here, and you count all of these up, so we do it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I think I've missed one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go. I knew there was 8. That's why I had to go back. Alright, so it's 8 levels deep. In contrast, you can see here we've got 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so 3 levels on the Exchange Management Console, and that was done purposefully by Microsoft. Okay, they received feedback from customers that the GUI was a bit complex in 2003 and it needed to be consolidated, so you've got a very, very nice and simple structure now. Little word of warning though. All of the features from 2003 are pretty much available in 2007. On top of that, there's a whole pile of new features that are available in 2007 that are not available in 2003. Right? What I'm getting towards here is that even though this thing here may look like a very simple interface, don't think that it's limited feature-wise. Okay, because you can still do everything you could do in 2003 and much, much more. Okay, it's just been consolidated, that's all. So if we have a little bit deeper look into the GUI, this is the pane that we were just looking at on the prior screen. Then when you click on a particular message, you're going to get this middle screen coming up. So we've got the actual results pane and we've got the work pane. So normally what happens, it's a 3-step process. So clicking on this brings this up, and then typically by clicking on something over here, we're going to get something down here. Now at the same time, we've got this pane, which is called the action pane. Some people like to call it the task pane as well. but this is where we do action. So, you know, for example, here you can see we can move the storage group, create new mailboxes. I can't quite read the rest, right? I need a slightly wider screen, but you get the idea. Integrated toolbox. Okay, now the nice thing about this is that prior through to 2007, there were some of these tools that I'm about to show you were available. It's just that they were available as separate downloads and therefore separate tools. So what they've done now is they've brought everything under the one hat. So everything is in the Exchange Management Console. We've got the Best Practice Analyzer, which is a great tool that I suggest you run on all of your systems, which again used to be a free download, but was a separate tool. So now it's all integrated. Similarly, we've got disaster recovery tools, we've got mail flow tools for troubleshooting, and we've got performance tools, all within the same management console. Alright, so you go to one place to manage everything. Integration with MOM. Alright, those of you who have not heard of MOM, MOM is the Microsoft Operations Manager, and what happens is that you might have file and print, SQL servers, Exchange servers, you know, live communication servers, you know, SMS, you name it. Now, all of these systems can have an agent, a MOM agent, deployed onto them. And now what happens is that this MOM agent is a very smart puppy in the sense that it can not only monitor the operating system on that particular machine, but it can go into the application and deep. Alright, so for example, if you go into you know, say SQL and say, well, this particular registry entry for this server, for this SQL installation should be X, and it's currently set to Y, right? And you'll get an alert telling you that that value needs to be changed. Or you might get, you know, an alert saying that this database has now become suspect, or that, you know, the indexes have to be redone, or what have you, right? But it goes deep into the actual application to the point that there are literally hundreds of things that are checked typically for the management packs that control things like SQL and Exchange and so on. Hundreds of them. So not only does it enable you to have a single point to have visibility across effectively your entire systems, but it also enables you to get reports, very nice reports, on all of these separate services as well. Okay, so all this is saying is that obviously Exchange 2007, just like everything else here, has a management pack for, probably the other way around I should say it, MOM has a management pack for Exchange 2007, and it gives you the ability of having that deep level of analysis of Exchange, and at the same time getting all these nice pretty reports. In this case we're having a look at messages by date. So we can see here, this is, I'm assuming, some sort of Microsoft server. They're getting roughly 15,000 messages a day. I wonder how much of that is spam. Anyway, moving on. PowerShell. Okay. Two types of people in this world. We've got Unix people and Windows people. Alright? Windows people typically like graphical user interfaces, and Unix people typically like scripts and command line. Okay, now people say never the twain shall meet, so I personally don't agree with that. Now, alright, first of all, let's deal with Exchange 2007. So, what has Microsoft done? They have completely revamped the GUI, made it much better wizards and so forth, much more intuitive, the whole collapsing of 8 levels down to 3, the new tasks pane, so on and so on. So that's a good thing. So Windows IT admins, happy. Okay. Now, Unix people have for a long time been saying, well, we need command line access through to all of these systems if you want us to basically come across, right, from Unix to Windows. Now get this. PowerShell, which is a command line interface, acts as a base for the GUI. Alright? Expressed another way, if this is the GUI and this is PowerShell, so in other words the command line, The GUI is a subset of PowerShell. A subset, okay? I know I'm repeating myself, but that's something that's never happened before, okay? You can actually do more with PowerShell than you can actually do with a graphical user interface. So that's actually a big deal. So I'm hoping Unix people are basically smiling about this and they like it, alright? Now similarly with Windows IT folk that are very, very used to doing things with a graphical user interface, even though I myself consider myself a Windows admin much more than a Unix admin, I also have a programming background, so I'm very, very aware of the benefits of scripting and automation rather than really just using a GUI. So if you've got to do the same job over and over and over and over again with a GUI, I personally can't stand that, and I absolutely have to find a way to automate it. So in the past, that's meant fairly complex VB scripts, which we're going to see in the next slide. But now with PowerShell, I'm pretty sure you're going to find this pretty damn nice. Now, alright, let's have a look at an example. Okay, so here's a command. Now, the very first part is always a verb. Whoops, verb. The second part is always a noun. You shouldn't be writing where you can't read, right? Okay, verb, noun. So it's always action and then on something. Okay, so here we're saying get mailbox. What are we getting? Well, over here, this section here, these are the parameters. Okay, so here we can see that the parameter name is organizational unit and the value is users, right? So in English, what this means is get me the mailboxes from the organizational unit called users. And boom. Okay, there it is. Nice and easy. Alright, single command line, nothing, it's not 10 screens of VB script code to actually get that output. Okay? Now, if you look at this command, and you look at this command, you'll see that they're exactly the same. Okay? Now, if you've not done scripting at all in the past, or any kind of Unix admin, you probably won't know what that there is. Okay? It's basically like a straight line, right? It's what's called a pipe symbol. And what that does is that if we look at a pipe, is that this command here generates this output, right? Or all this text. So all this output, when it's passed through the pipe, now becomes inputs to whatever's on this side. Okay? So here's our pipe. So we're going to, let me just wipe that. We're going to grab our output, and here we've got our pipe. Alright, so that's the output actually going in, and it's now going to be fed as input to this command. Alright, so here it says set mailbox prohibit send quota 1 gig. So let's do it in English. So it says we're going to get the mailboxes, all mailboxes from the organizational unit called users, and then with that result, so in other words with that output, we're going to set those mailboxes, the ones that we've just selected, such that we set the option of prohibit send quota, so in other words a limit on the size of the mail going out, to 1 gig. Okay? One line of code to do that. Right? Now if I went to a Windows administrator and let's say they're running Exchange 2003 and I asked him or her to actually do that, 14 clicks per user. Alright? What if I had 100? What if I had 5,000? Okay? You just cannot do things sometimes by the GUI. Right? It's just, it would take years. Okay? So, whereas over here, I can actually do it in a single line. Right? Regardless of whether it's 100, 5,000 or 50,000. So the power of scripting is very, very important for everybody, not just for the Unix people. Okay? Alright, I can get off my soapbox now. Alright, let's move on. So, we talked about VBScript. So, with VBScript, without exaggeration, all of this code can be replaced by one line 1, 2, 3, 4 words. 4 words versus 1 page of VBScript. Okay? And they're literally called one-liners, right? It's a term Microsoft have put in. So, and so the benefit is that the reality is that you just need to learn a little bit of syntax, and you're going to learn this thing as you go, alright, for the one-liners. Plus you can actually get help online, so not just online, but via the PowerShell itself, it will tell you the syntax that you can use. In contrast, if you needed to learn VBScript, you suddenly need to learn object-oriented programming. Okay? Oh, whoa. Not an easy thing to do overnight. Alright? You've got to learn about instantiation of variables, you've got to learn about loop structures, you've got to learn about, objects and methods and parameters, and there's a lot of stuff you've actually got to learn, right? Programming is not something you're going to pick up in 5 minutes, whereas you can literally sit down at PowerShell and just type that in 2 seconds.